All right, today we're going to review a dynamic warm-up for the upper body using primarily kettlebells. So the first thing we want to do is just warm up the tissues. We want to improve our core temperature. Remember, when we heat tissues up, they're going to be less viscous. We're going to have less opportunity to tear or insult those areas. When we heat up tissues, we can also generate a much stronger action potential. The nerve conduction velocity is generally higher, so we can really recruit more muscle fiber. So the first thing we'll start with is just a swing. This is a pretty basic movement. I don't think we need to go in depth, but we'll typically perform 2 to 3 sets, 20 to 30 repetitions. All I'm looking for on the swing is that the trunk is braced, the spine is in a stable neutral position, and that we're generating some explosive hip drive. The arms are just like meat hooks. They're extensions of the body. I'm not overly concerned with how high the arms travel. We're more concerned that the spine is stabilized and we're getting really nice action at the hips. So we'll start off, like I said, with a few swings. And with the swings, you want to limit the motion of the bell. The bell itself should be stable. Okay, so that's kind of our general prep. Heat up the tissue. Next, we want to get into some specific activation techniques for the shoulder. So one of my favorite things to start off with is just a kettlebell halo. Remember that we have a normal scapula-thoracic movement that needs to occur. We have a scapulohumeral rhythm where when the arm travels overhead, 1/3 comes from movement of the scapula rotating up. 2/3 comes from movement in the actual shoulder joint. So we can start to open up that scapula with just a kettlebell halo. Again, with this, the trunk is stabilized. We're going to just rotate the bell behind the head, trying to drop it as low as we can. Keep that spine as stable as possible. And then again, we'll just reverse sides, okay? So we're going to drop in, around, pull down. Drop in, around, pull down. We'll always repeat bilaterally. Boom, boom. And what we're trying to do is really focus on separating the arm from the body, allowing that bell to travel, and then pulling it down under control while staying rigid here. So typically we'll perform 10 to 20 repetitions on each side. Next, we can go ahead and start to activate the rotator cuff and some of the important musculature that stabilizes the shoulder while we move. So for this, you just need any type of strap. It needs to be a longer strap. We're going to drop it through the bell, okay? This is actually called a Duffin row. The first time I've seen this was from Duffin, so we'll give credit where credit's due. He's a true sui generis. What we're going to do is it's a front raise into external rotation. So we want to finish with the arms about 90 degrees. So we're going to pull and then retract. Again, it's a pull into external rotation, and we're squeezing. We're imagining that we're trying to squeeze a pencil in between the shoulder blades at the top and finish almost like a ref signaling touchdown, okay? So one more time, we want to grip the strap so that the bell is elevated just above the floor. Again, these are always opportunities to practice stabilizing the trunk, proximal stability, stability of the spine, rooting to the floor, and then moving the extremities. That's really what we're looking for with a lot of these different movements. So we're going to row, retract, rotate. The bell stays nice and tight to the body throughout the entire process. Again, we'll perform this for anywhere between 10 to 20 repetitions. A little bit higher volume because we're trying to promote localized blood flow and really activate some of these important synergists and stabilizers before we get into bigger pressing type movements. Okay, the next thing we need to do is centrate our shoulder joint. So what does that mean? There's an optimal alignment of the joint surfaces. Typically in strength athletes, people that are pressing a lot, people that are engaged in a lot of athletics where we're loading the shoulder starts to travel forward in the socket, and that can create subacromial impingement, okay? When the shoulder is rolled forward like that, when we go to press, we have to actually overpress at the top, and it puts a tremendous load on the biceps tendon and on the pec tendon. So if we can get the shoulder set back in the socket more, it's going to be much more stable. We're going to improve structural integrity of the shoulder joint, and we'll actually shorten the press too. So we should improve performance. So we can just use an arm bar technique where we're going to use an anterior to posterior load, driving that shoulder back into the socket. Typically what you want to do is just imagine that the shoulder is melting into the ground, okay? From there, we can use a mulligan technique, a mobilization with movement technique, where we actually use a screwdriver, where we focus on internal and external rotation of the joint while we're allowing it to sink down. So we can block at the elbow if we want, and really just focus on externally rotating and then internally rotating as far as we can. Now we want to try and capture as much shoulder rotation as possible and not so much pronation and supination at the elbow. So try and feel that musculature of the shoulder activating, twisting the entire time. Okay, so we can do this in the supine position, and then we can actually plant the arm, okay, extend the leg, roll, watch the bell with your eyes, and now we can do this in a side lying position where we're loading into the joint, and again, we'll just let it sink back into the socket, and then we will add external and internal rotation of the joint. And these are controlled articular rotations. We just kind of want to let it sink in, go through that normal motion. From here, we can actually go into a scapular press where we're lowering under control and then pressing. Lowering and then pressing. Typically, with these, we'll perform 10 different rotational passes each side, and then 10 to 15 presses. The final thing that we'll do is just a bottoms-up press. So I'm not a huge fan of vertically loading with really heavy weights. It's not a great position of high stability. This is actually an orthopedic test, an assessment for impingement of the shoulder. We kind of jam the joint surfaces together. But with lighter weights, we can really activate the rotator cuff in this position. So we like to use a bottoms-up press. So this is a chaotic movement. The weight is unstable. It wants to tip in different directions. This is also a large diameter around the handle of the bell, so that creates a radiation. So both of these force us to access and turn on a lot of the smaller synergists and stabilizers. So there's a lot of activation of the musculature of the forearm. You can see that firing, and of the rotator cuff. So again here, what we're looking for is we want to stabilize the spine, anchor this down, and then we are going to press under control and return. Again, we're anchoring down here, we are pressing and then returning. Pressing and then returning. Okay? Typically, with these, we'll perform 10 on each side. We may go through this entire routine 2 rounds. 1 round may be appropriate. Like I said, you just want to feel that you have, 1, activated the tissues, 2, heated them up, that we've actually set the joint back in the socket so we're in a healthy position to press, and then you're good to go. You're ready to progress on to more advanced training. Thanks, guys.